Waiting to Exhale, a 1995 American romantic comedy directed by Forrest Whitaker, and actually his feature film directorial debut, that stars Whitney Houston and Angela Bassett. The film was adapted from the 1992 novel of the same name by Terry McMillan, who also served as one of the co-writers. The cast is rounded out by Layla Rashawn and Loretta Devine, as well as Dennis Haysbert, Michael Beach, Gregory Hines, Donald Faison, a very young Donald Faison, McAllister Williamson, and a soundtrack that was composed by one Kenneth Babyface Edmonds. And it is worth noting right here at the top, in an uncredited role, actually there are two uncredited roles in here. This film also has Giancarlo Esposito and Wesley Snipes in Vincent's selection as we begin our celebration of Black Women's History Month here on the Micheaux Mission. Vincent, what say you of Waiting to Exhale?
This is a film that as we said at the top is foundational. Like, it's one thing to say that a film is iconic, but I think this is a foundational text when we talk about Black storytelling. And you can see the influence of Waiting to Exhale on almost everything. When you talk about Black women friendships, the way Black women's relationships are depicted, the way professional Black women are depicted. And again, a lot of it is a straight line to this. And there are two aspects of this film that I think immediately shine. And you see why it became what it became immediately. First and foremost, I think you can never overemphasize how important this book was.
Yo, boy.
You know, as you said, there's a 1995 film, but it was based on the 1992 book, Waiting to Exhale, that for our younger missionaries, if you weren't there, this thing hit like a lightning bolt.
It was everywhere.
Like it moved the culture. Terry McMillan had already been writing Disappearing Acts. The book right before this was a success. But Waiting to Exhale was the first time in popular culture that you had this story of 4 Black women in current times, professional women, middle-class women, dealing with very contemporary challenges. Like I think one of the things that is sort of fascinating just about the story in this book, the plot, if you will, or rather in this film, and this is reflected in the book as well, there is no big plot.
Right.
Like, Angela Bassett's character, Savannah, is going through a contentious divorce. But even that is really the engine for the rest of her time in this film. Her sort of self-discovery post-divorce and love and kind of becoming this woman that she already was. And then you have these friendships. But again, this was a moment in the culture, both broadly and within the Black community, where no one was really paying attention to this demographic.
That's very true.
And then Black women primarily responded to it. So that this storyline, this story about these 4 women is immediately kind of cemented into the culture. Along those lines, the film adaptation, which is 3 years later, by the time the film went into production, everyone involved knew just how important this was. Like, this isn't a film that became important. This is a film that was important as it was being made.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it came out, Oprah Winfrey had the cast on to talk to him. And the quote from Oprah Winfrey, this was before the Million Woman March in DC. Oprah Winfrey said, "This is like the Black Woman's Million Man March." Like, this was a very important moment. And you get the sense that everyone involved in this film was aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, the cast members, it is a parade of male actors.
Yeah.
That you see, Giancarlo Esposito, Milicatai Williamson, Dennis Haysbert, Wesley Snipes.
Didn't even mention Leon,
Michael Beach, and each of them bring a different tone and a different performance. But you can tell each actor by actor, a young Donald Faison, they are taking this seriously. They're taking this seriously. Like, I know why I'm here. I know what I'm supposed to do. I am on the side, like, I am in a supporting role. Like, one of the radical notions that you see in this film is that all of the men, to a man, is in a supportive role.
Yes.
Like, I'm here for a scene. I'm here for 2 scenes, maybe 3 scenes. Gregory Hines. We didn't even mention Micheaux Mission favorite, Gregory Hines. But I am here in service to these actresses and
to their story.
To their stories. Layla Rashawn, I really, really like Layla Rashawn.
Very young in her career.
Very young in her career. And honestly, when you look at Layla Rashawn, who portrays like the young she seems the youngest.
Right, Robin.
Robin is in a lot of ways the character that I would argue kind of has the hardest job. Because on the one hand, her story is the lightest. Like, you get the most comedy out of her. There's a scene with her and Milicatai Williamson that is laugh out loud funny as their quote unquote relationship falls apart, where he plays a cocaine addict that she's in love with. But she also has this kind of sadness underneath where she makes bad decisions over and over again with men until she kind of figures it out. But you never get the sense that she's there just for the comic relief.
Right.
Loretta Devine as Gloria, single woman, divorced, raising Donald Faison, her son Tariq. Really like Loretta Devine here, and I have to say that Loretta Devine is textually seen. She's a bigger woman.
Yes.
She's the bigger woman. And she has this love affair with Gregory Hines. And I like how it's played, where she's still sexualized. Like, she's still, a woman. She has this complicated relationship with her son that I think is dealt with in a really sensitive manner for it to be 1995. Like, this relationship between this single mother and her son that she doesn't want to let go. And again, Layla Rashawn, Loretta Devine, in a lot of ways, are the characters where among equals, they're the lesser two.
Yes.
Or they get, and then you kind of have the center two. You have Whitney Houston. This is her second role after The Bodyguard. And, considering The Bodyguard, she's basically playing herself. In a lot of ways, this is her first acting role. And much like The Bodyguard and The Preacher's Wife, you get it. Like, you completely understand why Whitney Houston would go into acting, Because while I don't think that Whitney Houston was the best actress, I do think Whitney Houston had that it factor.
The camera loved her.
The camera loved her. And I think the audience loves her. Like, I think Whitney Houston had that ability to connect. Like, as the audience, you connect with her. And, and as she plays this woman, Savannah, who, has problems with love, has this relationship, quote unquote, with a Dennis Haysbert, has a pretty realistic relationship with her mother, a grown daughter and a mother. You get Whitney Houston. And then kind of doing the heavy lifting is, of course, Angela Bassett. And Angela Bassett as the just divorced Bernie, who Michael Beach, who once again is playing the most awful human being on earth. But it was a period with Michael Beach, between Michael Beach in ER, when he gave his wife HIV, and then he was in this. Michael Beach was the worst human being on earth. And the film, in a lot of ways, it's very episodic. Like, you kind of go from storyline to storyline. And then I think there are only 3 scenes where all 4 actresses are together. Like, you get
it's not that many,
right? You get these scenes where there are combinations of them, but the scenes where the 4 of them together kind of flow from these 4 storylines that tonally are different. But I got the sense it was almost like an album where, you have a fast song, you have a ballad, you have this kind of song, but it's still a whole album. And I think that the film works in that manner where it's like, it's episodic, but it's like each segment is almost like a song, which is a perfect segue into
the
soundtrack, which is such an integral part of the storytelling. Like, music sort of textually, you have them, the women are singing, the women are listening to music. There's this ongoing detail where there's a local DJ that's talking. And I think it lends a level of lyricism to the film itself. Forest Whitaker, I liked him. I like the direction. I don't think he did anything spectacular, but I liked it. Filmed on location in Utah and in Arizona. And I think you get the sense, that kind of almost otherworldliness that you get from these locations, which again kind of lends itself to this lyricism as these women's lives flow into each other. And then they land in a place that, frankly, I think was pretty radical in 1995, where you realize that this film that takes place over a course of a year.
Exactly.
They realize that the relationship that's the most important is the one that they have with each other. So that, again, we sit here and we watch these movies, and there are films that I think have these reputations. And then you have to, at some point we circle around and see them. Obviously we've been doing this for many years. We haven't watched this film, but this film has had this reputation. And certainly we've seen film after film after film, television show after television show, book after book, record after record that pulls from this. So then you go to the source and you say, well, how is this the source? Or why is this the source? Or should this be the source? And I have to say, this might be my 3rd time seeing this film. I enjoyed this film, like, just as a film, and I get it. I really enjoyed this film.
I think it's also worth mentioning that this film comes out, the book, Waiting to Exhale, comes out in 1992. And it is everywhere. It blows up, and rightfully so, because it is this world that the world at large doesn't pay that much attention to. We've talked about it ad nauseum that how films and even television, to a degree, pays little concern to the thoughts, the interior motivations of Black women on film or in television. To any great degree. And the book blows up because this one, it's not just one woman, it's 4 women. So you could find yourself if you were a woman, period, but especially if you're a Black woman, in one of these characters in the book. And the proof of how successful and how groundbreaking that is that look at what follows in the wake of this book. And I'm not just talking about the film adaptation in 95. I'm talking about the following year, you have Living Single, which is the show about 4 single Black women, living their lives, which a lot of people know is the show that basically begat Sex in the City, which, and then from there, you got Girlfriends as a TV show. There have been other movies that have tried to capture this vibe. Even as recently as within the last couple of years, we've had the show Harlem on Amazon. It returns to, this has become a template.
I mean, Insecure kind of settles into the 4 girlfriends.
It does. It does. Because it's right there. The template has been set by Terry McMillan in Waiting to Exhale in the book. And then the movie smartly just, we've talked about some movie adaptations that kind of like veer off from the book in many places. This one pretty much stays true to form from the book. And smartly does it. And like you said, it takes place over the course of a year. You are more or less a fly on the wall into these women's lives, into what is going on. You're catching them making some questionable decisions. You're catching them at, with their hair down at their worst parts of their life. Can you imagine getting dressed to going out to a party, and that's when your husband's going to come up and stand in the mirror and say, would you be upset if we don't go to the party? Strike that. Would you be upset if you don't go to the party?
Terrible.
Terrible. But you also want to like, bruh, do you not realize you are saying this to Angela Bassett?
Don't nobody get angry like Angela Bassett,
bro. Unless I am 7'3" Shaquille O'Neal, I am not saying anything. I am not tempting Angela Bassett.
And even then, I think I might text her.
And even then, I'm downstairs. I'm at the door.
Oh, boy.
Baby. Like, no, I am not standing behind her at her vanity where she's got a broom, a brush. She's got a knife. There's broken glass. No.
Oh,
bruh,
boy.
Are you out of your rabbit ass mind?
Yeah.
And then I'm leaving and I'll be back next week for my stuff. Bruh, you have set yourself up.
Yeah.
Of course you got the iconic shot of when she sets his world on fire.
And again, you can tell on Angela Bassett's face, she knows this image will live forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She knows she's making something iconic.
It's what you know her from.
Yeah.
This and what's got to do with it.
Right.
That's Angela Bassett. So you got that going in this film. You have, for me, you talked about Loretta Devine and how she is sexualized in this film. And if you've been following us on the mission, and we've talked about it, it seemed like almost overnight Loretta Devine became like the mother in movies, right? And I've talked about on here how my intro to Loretta Devine was on the first season of A Different World, where I said, my God, man moment. Who is that? Because I was like, yo. And this was one of the first movies that I've seen for a long time when Loretta Devine was allowed to be, yo. You're like, I know, please say he's not watching me walk across the street. Well, if Gregory Hines ain't, I'm letting you know I am. And I'm watching you walk across the street, Loretta Devine. Thank you. Man moment over. So I love this movie for that. Layla Rashawn is someone else we talked about earlier in the show today about Angie Stone kind of like getting lost in the sauce of a lot of singers at her time. Yep. Layla Rashawn, this is the movie after kind of like her breakout from in Boomerang in a small role. This is kind of like, you know, like they think, okay, I think she can maybe handle this going up against these 3 stars. And she holds her own. She becomes more or less, to me, the audience surrogate in a lot of ways in this film. But you're right. Her story is probably the lighter one, but there is definitely this tinge of sadness because she is making real questionable decisions. And you're like, oh, baby, like, you know, you want...
right. Like you feel protective.
Yeah. You're like, oh, baby, no, baby, no. I mean... Okay, all right. Yes, I understand. Leon, he would make me think twice too. But come on, baby, no. But he also do look like the devil. Right. Like, no. And like, you know, and we didn't even mention him, but anytime you got Wendell Pierce just coming booping, I'm like,
make better decisions with your own life.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, baby. Like there's no reason why he should even know you have a bedroom.
Yeah.
Like come on. Yeah. But she's doing that work. She's doing that work. Angela Bassett, you're right. She is kind of like holding everything together. But I think the movie does a little bit of disservice to her because, like you said, most of the engine of her story is the divorce from her husband, and rightfully so. But because of that, she is a lot of times seen as just either at an 8 or a 10, like as far as like, you know, anger and feeling stuff and like, you know, just like right. And that can sometimes, if you're always like that, get a little played, right? But fortunately, this movie, we talk about the movies within a movie. This movie takes time to stop and give you this short little vignette between Angela Bassett and Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Uncredited, in what may be some of the best acting Wesley Snipes has done in a career of doing pretty good, phenomenal acting, but presenting easily the best acting in this movie. Because in that little vignette, when the two of them meet at this bar and expose themselves and are vulnerable with one another, you see finally Angela actually acting against someone and now being allowed to show different sides of her character, Bernie, against Wesley. And now you feel for her. Now and in that moment, that's when I really felt her pain. You know, I was feeling anger, but now I was feeling her pain. I was
good
feeling,
point. Yeah.
You know, and that's when it really resonated with me. And I was so much so, you say this all the time, I could have stayed with those two, watched their entire conversation at the bar, going to the elevator, going upstairs to the room, how they fell asleep with one another. You know, I would have stayed there. That would have been the movie for me. I would have loved it for that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this movie doesn't stay there because then it introduces, and not soon before or not long after, it introduces Gregory Hines
Yeah.
as the man across the street for Loretta Devine. And even though you don't see as much of him as I would have liked
Of course.
in this film, you see enough, one, to know that Gregory Hines was a beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've said it before, but Gregory Hines, he's maybe in 4 scenes in this movie, but he embodies that character immediately. Immediately, you know who he is. Immediately, you recognize who he is in this film, who he is in Loretta Devine's life, and every time you see him on screen, you can feel the advancement in their relationship,
Right.
even though you're not told it.
Right.
Even though
Absolutely.
you feel the passage of, oh, they're getting closer. They're getting closer. And that is a tribute to how beastly he is, because he's only, like I said, he's only in 4 scenes, and he really doesn't even have that many lines.
No.
You know, it's
a lot of it is physical.
a lot of it is just the physicality, and that is which makes sense knowing that he's a dancer.
Right. We always
so it's
go
all
back
about
to that.
in that body.
Yeah.
But like, my God, and to be able to, Loretta Devine, to be fair, is still pretty young in her movie career at this moment.
Yeah, but she's a seasoned stage actress.
Definitely. But to see those two, I'm like, okay, let me stay here for a minute,
Right.
because I can be here too.
Right.
Like, for me, that's your movie. Layla Rashawn is lifting up everybody else that she's in the scene. It's a young Wendell Pierce, so he's still doing his thing, but he's basically comedy relief. Leon, he's snake oil Leon. That's what Leon is. All right.
Right.
You know, when Leon's on screen, you know what you're getting.
Sure.
And he gives it to you.
Sure. Good looking guy.
Great looking guy.
Good looking guy.
I looked at him.
That's his thing.
That's his thing.
Good looking guy.
Most definitely. And that's it.
Leon as good looking guy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and McKellar Williamson, you know what you're getting. Excellent actor. He's like, oh, I'm comedy relief, but I'm a bad guy. Watch me work.
I'm a cokehead. Oh, I can do that.
That ain't nothing but Tuesday. Come on, man.
Oh,
Well, I get to throw oranges. Come on, man. Like, I'm like, he's having a ball, man. What? I don't need a shirt in this sleeve? Come on, man.
I laughed so hard at that scene.
It's so good. It's so good. To me, you can't go and see my mama.
And my son. Son?
How old is he? 1, 2, 3.
13? Oh, boy.
Oh, and shout out to Layla Rashawn, who nails it.
Look.
Right there in that scene.
Yeah.
Right there in that scene. So I'm in the bag. The camera loves Whitney Houston. I'm sorry. Thank God the camera loved Whitney Houston, because I don't love Whitney Houston in this movie. Now, I don't think, we've talked about it, I don't think she's the strongest actress. I don't think she's good in this movie at all. I don't think that
Really?
No, I don't think that she has, I think she has zero chemistry with Dennis Haysbert. But to be fair, I don't think Dennis Haysbert is doing much.
I was
either.
about to say that's that's more on Dennis Haysbert than
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
But I've seen Dennis Haysbert be good.
And I also think that's the character.
Whose character?
I think Dennis Haysbert's character is supposed to have this bit of, I got the sense that Savannah was told by her mother, you're supposed to be with him.
Obviously, yeah.
Because he's a tall, good looking guy. You know, he's a good man, Savannah. Like, that's the whole meme and all.
Yeah.
But I don't think they were supposed to really have a lot of chemistry. And the reason I say that, well, I'll let you finish because, but you,
go ahead.
Whitney's-
So what you say?
because I do like Whitney Houston with the other actresses. Like, I got the sense, much like you said, you could see the passage of time between Loretta Devine and Gregory Hines. I really admired her because remember, Savannah was new to the crew because she came from out of town. I really liked as the film went on, they became this foursome. And as I said, the four of them aren't together, but you have scenes, obviously, between Angela Bassett and Whitney Houston. And, you know, obviously you go to Angela Bassett's doing all the heavy lifting. But I like the couple of scenes, the phone call, and when Layla Rashawn's character talks about her abortion between Whitney Houston and Layla Rashawn. Like, I like their scenes together. So,
see, that's interesting because,
like, I like those scenes a lot.
I like the scene where Layla Rashawn is telling her about the abortion because that's Layla Rashawn's scene. The scene where they're on the phone call, I hate the staging of that scene. I think it's very amateurish.
Yeah. What's that weird split?
Yeah, with the mirror, and then it cuts for some
and I think
reason.
he was trying to be cute.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, easy.
Forrest,
Yeah, easy. This is your first
bro.
film, man.
Yeah. Slow down. But I don't think that they register well in that scene, in that phone call. I don't. I think you're right. Angela Bassett does a heavy lifting when she's with Whitney Houston, but I think that Whitney Houston it's. Look.
And I really liked all four of them together. Like, I thought the four of them together, they struck me as girlfriends.
Well, yes, they definitely were girlfriends because only girlfriends would know that in the scene where all of them are dancing, we all have to dance in front of Whitney because Whitney can't dance.
Yes.
So that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I also... Whitney Houston, the actor, famously had some troubles that she was going through while she was filming this movie.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think those are noticeable in her performance.
Where?
I think that there are times where she does not look like she is 100% very present on screen. And the film famously did shut down for a moment because she had to deal with some of her
absolutely.
demons.
Absolutely.
And I think that there were scenes where she is not, I don't think that she is present. I think there are ADR is something that happens in movies all the time, right? It's where people, or you have to dub over lines. I think there is a lot of overdubbing on Whitney Houston that is, I would guess that a lot of that is because they weren't getting it there on set and they had to bring her back in. Because she does not look present in a lot of scenes.
Is she better in another movie?
Is she better in another movie?
Wait, does she give me a performance that you think is better than this one?
I think
she's better in Preacher's Wife?
I think she's better in A Preacher's Wife, yes. And I think even though she's pretty much playing herself, I think she's better in Bodyguard.
I don't think she's better in Bodyguard. I may be forgiving it, the Dennis Haysbert stuff, because I really do think that's part of the story. And I liked her relationship with her mom.
Yeah, but that's over the phone. I mean, what are you talking about with relationship? That's over the phone.
She gave her performance.
Okay, well,
and that struck me as real.
Okay. It didn't for me.
Yeah.
It not enough to pull me away from the film, but it was a distraction for me in watching the film. Because as the second lead, she is in the majority of the other scenes that aren't Angela Bassett, you know? So because so much is focused around her, I did find that to be a bit of a distraction. But at the end of the day, I too am like you. I like the film. Did it bother me to a degree, and this is looking through it from a 21st century lens, that all of their troubles, as they were speaking of, were about men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that's from a 21st century lens.
And that's the story, though.
But and I also recognize that that's the story.
Right.
So I let go of that. You know, that's what the story is about. It's about their relationship with men, how they are dealing with this. And I appreciated that.
And landing on
that it's more about them.
It's more, right, this is way more important than these men.
Yes. And that was the most important thing.
Right. Which, to your point, I think that's what would have bothered. Like, it would have bothered me if it kind of landed on all of them had to pair off and live happily ever after.
Yes.
With a man.
Yes.
Which, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the successors to this film
fall into that trap,
have not been brave enough.
That's the word.
To come to the conclusion that Terry McMillan did in 1992. The important, like, you know, I think a lot of the films that are the legacy of this kind of pay lip service to, oh, you know, it's really my girls who are really the important part. But, you know, it's always, it's always like Lorenz Tate shows up in the last episode and they run off and get married or something.
Well, or to your point, they actually pay literal lip service to that. You'll hear like some voiceover speaking to that, or someone will say like, well, it's all about you, it's all about us, or something like that. This film lands there, but it shows it. The girl, they don't say
right.
It's all about us. No, you just see it. You feel it in that moment with them as they are, you know, celebrating New Year's Eve at the end of the film, as opposed to at the top. So, so I appreciate that. You talk about the bravery. Lesser films have the post-credit scene of Angela Bassett on her way to Wesley Snipes.
Right.
But they never meet up again.
Right.
He sends her a letter. And tells her how much he appreciates, you know, recognizes what they meant to one another. But that's it.
Well, the irony is the only one that ends up with a man is the one who wasn't really looking, and
who in the film loses her man, which is her son, going off to, you know, do his thing.
Right.
You know, so, yeah. So would you recommend that people see?
Not only would I recommend it, but I will say this, just, you know, I was on a panel last week with, shout out to WURD. And,
our girl Tanya.
Well, and Tanya Pendleton, our good friend Tanya Pendleton, was the moderator, and she and I got to talk a little bit. And I told her we were doing Waiting to Exhale, and she said, oh, y'all should have, you know, you should have women on when you review it, which I can appreciate that sentiment that, you know, this is a woman's text. This is aimed towards women. This is, you know, very much a woman-centered text. But I also think it's important that people who aren't Black women, and particularly Black men, champion the work of Black women and the work that's aimed towards Black women. Because I do think part of the challenge with a lot of this work, and we'll talk about this all month, is it almost gets balkanized. And we say, oh, this is their stuff. And almost inherently, we kind of make it lesser than.
Yeah.
So I have to say, I thought it was important that the two of us, that we do this, we talked about this on its own merits, not as something representative, not as something symbolic, but as a film that stands on its own. And again, I think this is a film that is frankly known more for its legacy, than for its merits as a film. And it happened immediately, like I said at the top, like when it was like it was a fanfare about the film before the film was even in production. Who's going to play the roles? Who's going to direct it? Who's going to do the soundtrack? This, that, and the other. So that that almost eclipses the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think, and I'll let you speak for you, obviously, but I'll speak to you, even with the reservations that you have with Whitney Houston. This film stands on its own merits.
Yes, it does.
And I would absolutely recommend it for its status as a film. And then if you are interested in Black film, again, this is foundational.
Yeah.
Like, this is in the DNA of so many films that you kind of have to watch it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Another thing I want to point out is something else radical about this is that you have these 4 leads in these films, and these are 4 brown women.
It's
worth pointing that out.
That is worth pointing out.
These are 4 brown women leading this film.
Another aspect that many of the successors can't say. And again, Layla Rashawn as the quote unquote heavier one.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the comic relief.
You mean Loretta Devine?
I'm sorry, Loretta Devine. She's not the comic relief. She's not the butt of the jokes. She's not, again, comically over sexualized.
I was going to say,
that you see all the time with these characters. She has the nerve to be humanized. And again, I am part of this foursome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Oh yeah. I was just going to say another great thing about her character is that she is the mother in here, but she also is a mother, like, she's not the mother that knows all. She mothers her friends a little bit, because she definitely plays like a mothering role a little bit to Bernie, Angela Bassett's character. But she still has flaws. She still has doubts. She still has, learns, develops.
Look,
I really.
I know we're supposed to be wrapping this up. I really enjoyed the light touch of the exploration of that dynamic between her and her son Tariq, and that that kind of bit of toxicity, that happens sometimes, and how she realizes it. I thought Donald Faison did a good job in this role, seeing that anger that he has towards his father, resentment towards his mother, trying to hold him back, but all tempered by this genuine love. Like, there's this moment where he kisses her while she's asleep and says happy birthday, and he tells her happy birthday. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
And
I also like that. I'm sorry, cut you off. I also like that his father, played by Giancarlo Esposito, is not demonized in this movie.
No.
At all. He is someone who is coming to his own truth.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not played around with at all.
It's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
No.
It's up front. It's there. It's dealt with, and then it's moved on. It doesn't become like this talking point for the rest of the film in any type of way, or this chip on someone's shoulder or anything. So it's smart. It's like very intelligent movie. I would definitely recommend watching Waiting to Exhale. If you've seen it, it's been a while since you've seen it. It's worth revisiting. It is really, like you said, it is the template. And sometimes you have to return to the template so you can remember, how did this get made?